I'm doing is telling you what the costs are from the city's point of view.
You know, but I guess the reason I just questioned when you referenced the, the cost of the towers and the other thing, and I'm not saying that they maybe don't have a play in it, but if we were to continue to use our tower, do we really have need to be assessed the value of your towers?
Right. And my response to you is, if I'm sitting over in the city of Rushford, which is what I'm paid to do,
Yes.
I'm looking at it from the total cost of operating our system. It's your job as a politician to talk to the city council and work that one through.
Well, the only case you could make it the other way, look at it as saying, okay, if you sold no more water, okay, your costs are still the same, are they not?
Right.
And if you sell more water, and you strictly put, just for sake of talking, your true variable costs on there. You're gonna have chemicals, you're gonna have electricity.
Yeah, and I think, I'm
Which
sorry.
would be $12,000 for that many gallons of water.
My wife's always telling me I interrupt her all the time too, and I apologize for that. But I think if you look at page 5, those costs there are pretty much the kind of costs that you would multiply by whatever amount of water you ask for. If you ask for 3 million gallons a year, you would back those numbers down from the 5.7.
Yeah.
And I very much apologize for interrupting you. It's
No problem, I appreciate your numbers, but what I'm just saying is if you look at the other extreme of that is your costs are what they are today, they won't change a bit if you do nothing else, correct? You get no more revenue if you do nothing else, correct? So if you were to sell 5.7 million gallons, the real cost of pumping that, it'd be a whole lot different than what I'm looking at here, would they not?
I don't think they would change on the top line at all, because those are real costs. If you looked at the top line on that page there, the $64,000, if I pump an extra 10% water, then that $64,000 goes up by 10%. Because that's pure power and operating the treatment plant and getting it to the point where I can turn on and sell.
Which includes your chemical costs.
Absolutely, right. So if I increase my pumpage or my sales, that goes proportionately up.
So you're saying your $9,194 is really your true variable cost of production
Right,
only.
of production, right. But I would tell you that, if you buy a car, you have to get the power from the engine to the back wheels, and that's basically what the interconnecting piping is here. You can't.
Well, I don't understand, what I'm saying is, if you look at just true variable cost, here's what your real cost is for extra revenue. And, what number you put on it, that's totally up to your council. I mean, we're just trying to look at the extremes of what's the real cost you add into it versus what you want to achieve from it.
Right. And that's my job, I've done it. Now it's the council's job to decide
No,
how
I
to
appreciate
deal
it,
with it.
fine.
Good job. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, thank you very much.
I think with the view, with the numbers, I guess we would need to, we're not in a position to make any decision on any of this until we run it through Davie Engineering to do the analysis.
Yeah, I think what Mike would suggest, if the councils are agreeable, we'd certainly work with Mr. Chang and Ms. Schoen here to work something out. I mean, we'd be glad to do that. 'Cause I think what I'm hearing is there's some room for negotiation, there's some room for looking at billing at a different rate than the original rate I think we saw was basically a meter size, and that's it. That was the original one, I think that was presented last fall. But if you look at, like say, costs as a percentage or a ratio of your actual production, I mean, I see there's certainly be able to work with the group to come up with a reasonable number, I think.
I think the bottom line gets to be for the village is it going to be cost advantageous to work with the city to get the radium reduced, or are we better off to be independent and do it on our own? The wishes would be that if there was an arrangement, that it would be a win for both parties. you know, if that isn't a possibility, I mean, we most certainly aren't looking to the city and saying, we need a handout. That's not what we're offering. We're saying that if it's an advantage to the city to do something, it's a positive thing. If it is not, then, you know, we know what the next step is for us. It's just that our timeline is tight based on what Davy Engineering has established, and we need to make sure that we cross these hurdles in a timely fashion, or we're not gonna make it by the time that it needs to be done.
If I might add one comment, the advantage, Mr. Mayor, to the city of Rushford is that there would be some benefit to pumping more water in. That, you know, we only have one employee that works on that, so that cost would be split if we were to look at fixed costs and how that's handled a little bit. The other benefit is that, you know, we have a dead end that ends up down at the bridge there. And if we did extend water line to the village, it would basically move that dead end further down, and the people in the city of Rushford would have a greater turnover in their water, and there'd be less dead end problems. That's about the only real benefit we would get out of it.
Exactly, the increased volume is good for Rushford.
Right.
I know we do have some people that have come to us with concerns about the taste of the city's water. Now, I can only presume that your new plant being online and getting the old lines flushed out will help that. But I know some people have extreme concern about the taste of the water. That's,
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, may I?
Go right ahead.
Yeah. Before we put the plant in, we get people coming into City Hall with laundry baskets that had manganese stains and iron stains and everything else. That doesn't happen anymore since we turned the plant on last summer. And you gentlemen have as better knowledge than I do as to what the quality of water is now compared to what it was before. I think when we look at the numbers, our iron, our radium's gone down from somewhere between 8 and 11 down to 1 to 1.5. Our iron is probably, I'd say, 15% of what it was before the plant came online. It's night and day when water quality's looked at.
I've had 2 different residences since the flood happened, and I've lived I'm completely opposite ends of town. I was over on Elm Street, now I'm over on River Street. I'm not complaining about the water.
Right.
Either or.
I presume that, you know, if you took a taste of water at the plant, it would be different than if you were at this extreme part of your delivery system, based on the old pipes
Yeah.
and getting them flushed out.
It depends how much flushing has gone on. Yeah.
Flush time, and I will speak to my, right on 43 there, and compared to before, the water's great. I mean, it's
So you're getting
I
better.
don't have any problem with drinking them. It's softer when you're washing your hands or clothes or whatever, so,
Good.
and it wasn't that way before.
We'd certainly invite you to come over for a free drink, Mr. Mayor.
Does it mix well with other beverages?
Maybe a little scotch.
Well, I guess, propose the question of the city, Jim referred to Davy Engineering, and the willingness that they would have to work with your engineering firm. If that's something that would be considered, then I would say that we can allow the engineers that opportunity to have some dialogue and see if they can put some numbers